After my surgery, my parents refused to help. My sister's dress shopping mattered more. I cut them off and focused on healing. 3 months later, they called, panicked. The mortgage bounced. I replied, "Guess you'll need a new sponsor." The neurologist's pen tapped against the MRI scan like a judge's gavel. 3 times. Each tap felt like a countdown. "Your L4 and L5 vertebrae are compromised," Dr. Patricia Nguyen said. She'd been a spinal surgeon for 19 years. I'd checked her credentials obsessively since the accident. The herniated discs are pressing against your spinal cord. Without surgical intervention within 6 weeks, you're looking at progressive paralysis. First your legs, then potentially your bladder and bowel function. 6 weeks to avoid spending the rest of my life in a wheelchair. I was 32 years old. How much? My voice sounded hollow in the sterile office. The surgery itself is $120,000. Anesthesia, hospital stay, physical therapy. You're looking at close to $200,000 total. My insurance, through the warehouse, covered basic care. This wasn't basic. This was a specialist surgeon, titanium hardware, months of rehabilitation. I'd been a logistics coordinator for Davidson Supply for 8 years. I had $17,000 in savings. My car was worth maybe $8,000 if I sold it tomorrow. My 401k had $23,000, but the early withdrawal penalties would gut it. I was $90,000 short of keeping my legs. The accident had been stupid. A forklift operator named Jimmy had been texting while moving a pallet of industrial shelving. I'd been standing in what should have been a safe zone, checking manifests on my tablet. The pallet fell. 200 pounds of steel shelving collapsed onto my lower back. Jimmy cried when he visited me in the hospital. "I'm sorry, Alex. God, I'm so sorry." The company settled fast, $50,000 and a confidentiality agreement. Their lawyers were efficient. The money covered the initial ER visit, the ambulance, the first round of diagnostics. It was gone in 3 weeks. "I need to make some calls," I told Dr. Nguyen. She touched my shoulder. Her hands were steady. Surgeon's hands. "Don't wait too long. The window is narrow." I'd been putting off the call for 2 weeks. Pride, maybe. Or the knowledge that once I asked, I couldn't unask. My parents lived in Riverside Estates, a gated community 40 minutes from my apartment. Dad had retired 6 months ago with a full pension from his job as a regional sales director. Mom had never worked. She managed the household, she'd say, though their household was mostly managed by a cleaning service and a landscaper. My sister Brittany was 26, engaged to Connor Whitfield, whose father owned 3 car dealerships. The wedding was in 4 months. I'd been hearing about nothing else for the past year. I called on a Thursday evening. Mom answered on the second ring, her voice bright. "Alex, how's my boy? We haven't heard from you in ages." 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since the accident. I'd called them from the hospital. Dad had said, "That's rough, kiddo." And Mom had said, "Well, thank goodness for insurance." "Mom, I need to talk to you and Dad. Together. Can I come over tomorrow?" "Tomorrow? Oh, honey, that's tricky. Brittany has her final dress fitting at Bellissima Bridal, and I absolutely have to be there. You know how she gets when—" "Mom, please, it's important." The line went quiet. Then, "Is this about the accident? Because the insurance should cover—" "It doesn't. I need to talk to you both, please." "Fine, come for lunch, but make it quick. The fitting is at 2. I pulled up to their house in my 10-year-old Honda at 11:47 a.m. The pain in my back was constant now, a grinding pressure that made every breath shallow. I'd stopped taking the prescribed painkillers because I couldn't afford to refill them. Dad was in the driveway, washing his new Lexus. He'd bought it to celebrate retirement, $58,000. I'd seen the Facebook post. "Hey, sport," he waved, spray nozzle in hand. "Looking rough. You sleeping okay?" I wasn't sleeping. I was lying awake, calculating interest rates on medical loans I wouldn't qualify for. Mom met me at the door wearing a designer pantsuit. Behind her, I could see Brittany at the kitchen island, scrolling through Pinterest on her laptop. She looked up, waved absently, and returned to her screen. "Sit, sit," Mom gestured to the living room. I made chicken salad. I couldn't eat. My stomach was a knot of dread and rage and desperation I'd been choking down for weeks. "I need your help," I said. Dad settled into his recliner. Mom perched on the edge of the sofa. Brittany stayed in the kitchen, half listening. I told them everything. The MRI results, the 6-week deadline, the cost, the money I'd already spent, the $50,000 from the settlement that had evaporated, the additional $90,000 I needed, or I'd lose the use of my legs before my 33rd birthday. "I need to borrow it," I said. My voice cracked. "I'll pay you back. I'll sign anything. I need help." Silence. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at his hands. "Alex," Mom finally said, This is terrible timing. Terrible timing." I repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. "We're liquid poor right now," Dad said. "The retirement accounts are invested long term. We can't touch them without penalties. You just bought a $50,000 car. We sold your father's old Camry to offset that," Mom said defensively. "And that purchase was planned for months. This is unexpected. So is getting crushed by a forklift." "Don't be dramatic," Brittany Brittany called from the kitchen. Can't you get a loan or something? I turned to look at her. She didn't even have the decency to face me, just kept scrolling through pictures of centerpieces. My credit isn't good enough for an unsecured loan that size. I need a cosigner. We can't cosign, Dad said quickly. Our credit is tied up in other things. What other things? Mom's voice went sharp. Your sister's wedding. The venue deposit alone was $40,000. The catering is another $30,000. The flowers, the photographer, the band. Are you serious right now? I stood up too fast. Pain exploded down my spine. I gasped and gripped the back of the chair. Oh, don't try to guilt us with theatrics, Mom snapped. We've worked our entire lives. We deserve to enjoy our retirement, and Brittany deserves her dream wedding. We're not going to cancel everything because you made poor choices about insurance coverage. Poor choices? My voice rose. I got hit by a fucking forklift. Language! Mom stood. We don't talk like that in this house. Brittany appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. This is really selfish, Alex. Do you know how hard it is to plan a wedding? I've been working on this for 18 months. Mom and Dad have put deposits down on everything. You can't just expect them to blow up my entire wedding because I need to walk, I said. Each word felt like I was spitting out broken glass. I need to not spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. That's what I need. There are government programs, Dad said. Disability benefits. You'd qualify if the worst happened. If the worst happened. If I became a paraplegic at 32, they meant. If I lost my job. If I lost my life as I knew it. And they'd rather that happen than postpone a party. Brittany's dress alone cost $12,000, Mom said, as if this explained everything. From a designer in Paris. It's being custom fitted tomorrow. We can't back out now. I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. Her perfect manicure. Her highlighted hair. Her future funded by our parents while I was expected to figure out how to keep my spine from destroying itself. When's the dress fitting? I asked quietly. 2:00 at Bellissima Bridal, Mom said, checking her watch. Which is why we really need to wrap this up. Right. I headed for the door. My legs felt numb. Maybe that was psychological. Maybe it was the herniated discs. I couldn't tell anymore. Alex, wait, Dad started. I understand, I said without turning around. I understand perfectly. I understood that I had a sister who was more important than me. I understood that I had parents who valued appearances over their son's ability to walk. I understood that a dress fitting mattered more than my future. Don't make a scene at the wedding, Mom called after me. Wear something nice and please try to look happy in the photos. I made it to my car before I started shaking. Made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over. I sat in a Walgreens parking lot and called the one person I thought might understand. Marcus Reed answered on the first ring. Alex, you okay? Marcus was my shift supervisor at Davidson, had been for 5 years. We'd started on the same day, worked our way up together. He'd visited me in the hospital every day after the accident, brought me food, made sure I wasn't alone. I need help, I said. My voice broke. I don't know what else to do. Marcus showed up at my apartment an hour later with coffee and a folder full of documents. I already talked to Henderson, he said. Henderson was Craig Henderson, the owner of Davidson Supply. 63 years old, built the company from a single truck to a fleet of 40. He wants to meet with you Monday morning. Marcus, I can't ask. You're not asking, I'm telling. Henderson's son got into a motorcycle accident 5 years ago. Nearly died. He knows what medical debt looks like. Monday morning, I sat in Craig Henderson's office. The walls were covered with photos. His family, his grandkids, the first Davidson truck from 1987. Marcus filled me in, Henderson said. He was a big man, hands scarred from years of loading trucks before he could afford to hire people to do it. You're a good worker, Alex. 8 years, never late, never caused problems. Jimmy fucked up and you're paying the price. The settlement was insulting, Henderson cut me off. Our insurance company threw money at you to avoid a lawsuit. That's business. This is different. He slid a check across the desk. $90,000. I stared at it. Mr. Henderson, I can't. It's a loan. 0 interest. You pay me back when you're able. Could be 5 years, could be 20. I don't care, but you're getting that surgery. My vision blurred. Why? Because Jimmy was texting on company time using a company device. Because I should have caught that in the safety audit. Because you're 32 years old and you deserve to walk. He stood and offered his hand. Get the surgery? Come back to work when you're ready. Your job will be waiting. I took his hand. Couldn't speak. Just nodded. The surgery was scheduled for September 12th at 9:04 a.m. Dr. Nguyen would spend 6 hours fusing my vertebrae with titanium rods and screws, decompressing my spinal cord, giving me back my future. September 12th was also the day of Brittany's final dress fitting at Bellissima Bridal. I didn't tell my parents about the surgery date, didn't call, didn't text. I'd sent a message 2 weeks after our conversation, a simple, I figured it out, and heard nothing back except Mom asking if I'd RSVP'd to the engagement party. I hadn't. Marcus drove me to the hospital at 6:30 a.m. My neighbor Janet came too. She was 56, worked night shift at the post office, and had been bringing me casseroles since the accident. Your people are here, she'd said when I tried to thank her. Not the ones ones who should be, but the ones who are. Dr. Nguyen met with me in pre-op. We're going to take good care of you. When you wake up, the pain will be different. Better. You'll feel it. They wheeled me into surgery at 8:47 a.m. While I was under anesthesia, my spine opened and hardware being bolted into my bones. My mother and sister were at Bellissima Bridal deciding between pearl or crystal beating on a bodice. When I woke up at 3:30 p.m., throat raw from the breathing tube, Marcus was there. Janet was there. 3 of my co-workers from Davidson were there. Tommy, Sarah, and Luis, holding a stuffed animal and a card signed by 47 people. My family wasn't there. My phone had one text from Mom sent at 2:47 p.m. Dress looks stunning. Wait till you see it. I deleted it. The recovery was brutal. 6 weeks of barely moving. 12 weeks of physical therapy that made me cry. But Dr. Nguyen had been right. The pain was different. Better. My legs worked. I could walk. By Brittany's wedding in November, I was off the walker and using a cane. I didn't go. Sent a card with nothing written inside except my name. Mom called me the day after. You embarrassed us. People asked where you were. I was recovering from spinal surgery. You never told us you had surgery. You never asked how I figured it out. She hung up on me. 3 years passed. I paid Henderson back in full. Took every spare dollar, every overtime shift, every bonus. When I handed him the final check, he tried to refuse it. Keep it, he said. Invest it. Buy a house. I'm paying my debts to people who actually helped. He accepted the check and promoted me to regional operations manager 2 weeks later. I bought a small house, got a dog named Murphy, started dating a physical therapist named Rachel, who understood chronic pain and didn't judge me for bad days. I heard updates about my family through Facebook posts I no longer commented on. Brittany had a baby, a girl named Madison. Mom and Dad traveled to Europe, posted photos from Paris, Rome, Barcelona, living their best retired life. I blocked them all 6 months after the wedding. Then came the call. It was a Tuesday morning in March when my phone rang with Dad's number. I almost didn't answer, let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Alex? His voice sounded wrong, strained. We need to talk, it's urgent. What's wrong? Can you meet us today? Please, it's an emergency. 20 minutes later, I was in a coffee shop 2 blocks from my office. Dad and Mom walked in looking like they'd aged a decade. Mom's hair was grayer. Dad had lost weight. They sat down across from me without ordering anything. We need money, Dad said. No preamble, no small talk, just desperation. What happened? Mom's hands shook as she pulled out bank statements. We made some bad investments. Your father's former colleague recommended a real estate opportunity. It was a scam, Dad cut in. We lost almost everything. The retirement fund, the savings. We refinanced the house to cover the losses and now we're 3 months behind on the mortgage. I looked at the statements. They'd taken out a second mortgage for $170,000. The monthly payment was $4,200. Where's Brittany? I asked. Mom's face crumpled. Brittany said we should have been more careful. Connor's family doesn't want to be associated with financial problems. They're not taking our calls. How much do you need? $40,000 to catch up on the mortgage and keep the bank from starting foreclosure proceedings, Dad said. We know you're doing well now. Regional manager, the house. We've seen your LinkedIn. They'd been watching my life from a distance while refusing to be part of it. When did you know about the financial trouble? I asked quietly. 6 months ago, Mom admitted. But we didn't want to worry anyone. 6 months. They'd known for 6 months and only called when they were about to lose the house. I opened my phone, pulled up my banking app, showed them the balance. $78,000, years of overtime, bonuses, careful saving, money I'd been setting aside for a bigger house, for a future with Rachel, for the life I'd built despite them. Hope lit up their faces like a drug. Thank God, Mom breathed. I knew you'd help. You're such a good son. I am a good son, I agreed. I closed my phone and put it back in my pocket, which is why I'm going to give you the same advice you gave me when I was facing paralysis. Dad's face went pale. Alex, get a loan, figure it out, make better choices. That was different, Mom's voice rose. Other customers turned to look. You were being dramatic about walking? I stood up. My back ached. It always would, Dr. Nguyen had warned me. Permanent nerve damage from waiting those 6 weeks. I was 24 hours away from permanent paralysis when I sat in your living room and begged for help, and you told me Brittany's dress fitting was more important. We couldn't afford to help you and pay for the wedding, Dad said desperately. We had commitments. So do I. I have a commitment to the man who wrote me a check when my own parents wouldn't. I have a commitment to the co-workers who sat in a hospital waiting room while you were picking out napkin colors. I have a commitment to everyone who actually showed up. I picked up my keys. My hands were steady. 3 years ago, they'd shaken with desperation and rage. Now they were calm. Brittany's dress cost $12,000, I said. The wedding cost over $100,000. You had money then. You chose to spend it on a party instead of your son's spine. So now you get to make different choices. Where are we supposed to go? Mom's voice cracked. We'll be homeless. Figure it out, I said. Be resourceful. Maybe Brittany's designer dress can get you a loan. Or Or maybe you can sell that Lexus you bought with your retirement celebration money. I walked toward the door. Alex, wait, please. Dad stood. We made a mistake. We're sorry. Doesn't family mean anything to you? I stopped, turned back. Family means Marcus driving me to surgery at 6 in the morning. Family means Janet making me casseroles when I could barely stand to cook. Family means my coworkers signing a card and visiting me in the hospital. I met his eyes. You're not my family. You're just people who share my DNA. You're going to let us lose everything? Mom asked. No, I said. You already lost everything. 3 years ago, when you chose a dress fitting over your son, you just didn't know it yet. I walked out of the coffee shop into the March sunshine. My phone buzzed with texts. Dad, then Mom, then a call I declined, then another. I blocked both numbers and drove back to my office. That evening, Rachel came over with Thai food and Murphy's favorite tennis ball. We sat on my back porch, watching the dog run around the yard I'd bought with money I'd earned working through pain my parents had refused to help me avoid. They called you? She asked. She knew the whole story. I'd told her on our third date, warning her about the family drama she'd be walking into. Yeah, what did you say? I threw the ball for Murphy, watched him chase it with pure, uncomplicated joy. I told them to guess they'll need a new sponsor. She laughed, kissed my cheek. Good. 6 months later, I got a Facebook message from a cousin I barely knew. My parents had filed for bankruptcy. The house was gone. They'd moved into a small apartment in a complex near the old industrial district. Brittany had apparently offered them her guest room for 2 weeks before Connor's parents strongly suggested they find other accommodations. The golden child, it turned out, was only golden when things were easy. I didn't respond to the message, didn't reach out, didn't care. I married Rachel in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Marcus was my best man. Henderson came. Half of Davidson Supply's management team showed up. Janet brought a casserole to the reception. My parents weren't invited. Someone later told me they'd heard about the wedding through mutual connections, that Mom had cried, said it wasn't fair, said I was being cruel. I didn't feel cruel. I felt free. The people who'd wheeled me into surgery while my mother picked out beading for a dress, those people sat in the front row at my wedding. The people who'd brought me food and coffee and hope when I thought my life was ending, those people danced at my reception, and the people who'd told me a fitting at Bellissima Bridal was more important than my ability to walk, they got exactly what they'd given me 3 years ago. Nothing. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation or exposure or elaborate schemes. Sometimes it's just living well, walking without help, building a life with people who actually show up, and letting the people who abandoned you figure out their own problems. After all, they told me to be resourceful. I was just taking their advice.